Alrighty, we have to talk about the current state of the film, TV, and entertainment media industry because I'm noticing a huge shift that I haven't really seen since the rise of streaming services. And here's what I found, and I just wanted to make this quick video just to kind of let you guys know my findings and also to figure out if this is in fact actually happening or if I'm just crazy. So what shift am I talking about specifically? Well, it's all to do, at least in my opinion, with social media. Changes in streaming, changes in consumer habits, and also changes in the type of content that's being created at the minute. So I'll break them down one by one briefly. First of all, I wanted to quickly touch on the streaming changes. So I'm just gonna take a couple steps back into the early days of streaming services. So much so that there's a whole generation of kids that grew up in a time where cable TV wasn't a thing, that grew up with this era of on-demand streaming and social media. So this has been well and truly in our lives for a very long time. Very long time. So we've had quite a while for the industry to adjust and settle into it. And a part of that is this current direction that Netflix and other streamers are going down, which I'm a little bit concerned about. And I don't know about you, but I've been hearing a lot of discourse out online, anecdotal stuff, mostly about Netflix creating not really quality shows anymore, but more so trying to pad out their catalog with just sheer mass. This is extremely disappointing to see because a lot of people, when they signed up to Netflix first and foremost, way back in the day when it was first a thing, it was more so an answer to cable and how expensive it was, how inaccessible it was to most people, right? And it was seen as this savior of TV because you could watch all your favorite shows for the low price of however much it was. It was like $8 or something a month back in the day. And they had all our favorite shows, Friends, Simpsons, The Office. It was all on there. But now Netflix is unrecognizable from what it was in the past. It's not just Netflix, it's just the general ecosystem of streaming. Now there's dozens and dozens of streamers, all with their own little niche. Every single company that even has the slightest profitable IP has gone on and made their own streaming service, for better or for worse. Well, for worse in my opinion, because now in order to watch your favorite shows, you don't it's not enough just to pay for the one Netflix subscription. You have to pay for Paramount Plus or HBO or this or that. And in the end, you're paying about as much as you would have if you just bought cable TV back in the day, which is absolutely crazy. So that's one issue. But the other issue, which is kind of concerning to me, is the way that the content created for Netflix is changing, not just in its core values of it being more quantity as opposed to quality, but also in the writing. I've heard a lot of anecdotal, I suppose, tales out online about people making Netflix shows and having executive producers or producers from Netflix going to scriptwriters and telling them to make these scenes or these shows or these movies more second screen because of consumer habits, because people are consuming Netflix as the second screen while they're scrolling on their phone or doing something else or cooking or doing laundry, right? And the way this manifests is this really weird, unnatural dialogue where the actors are over explaining themselves, sort of really spelling it out to the audience so that if they're not giving 100% of their attention to the screen, they'll still know what's going on, which is a bit concerning because if you know anything at all about screenwriting, and I have an entire video dedicated to some nice rules of screenwriting that I found just over here, I'll link it somewhere. That's not necessarily indicative of good writing. Good writing has always been show, don't tell, and now we have people at the very top of the streaming echelon advocating for the exact opposite, and in my opinion, creating a worse product for it. Now, I could go into way more detail about that, but I'll save that for another video. That's one issue that I've noticed with the change in streaming. The next thing is consumer habits. So I briefly touched upon it before, but people, yes, they are consuming like multiple screens at a time, and guilty, I do this all the time. I'm not saying that I'm better than other people. I sometimes I scroll on Instagram while I'm watching a Netflix show. Okay, I'm sorry, sue me. But not only that, that's not the only consumer habit that's changing. The other thing as well is consumers are now looking towards social media as their main source of entertainment. So films and TV shows are in this weird space where they're competing for that, I guess, primary first screen spot. But also, like, you know, that's not necessarily how consumers are consuming their media these days. And I don't know, it's still a little bit uncertain at this stage. But, you know, when I'm talking about these sorts of changes in consumer behaviors, people are looking more towards not necessarily like going to the theater or watching a TV show or film. They're looking towards social media, short form content, YouTube content, this sort of stuff, right? This isn't necessarily like a good or bad thing. This is just a change in consumer behavior, and consumer behavior will change over time. That's just an absolute unavoidable truth. But the really interesting thing and the really strange thing I find is how the industry is responding to that. And as a result of this consumer behavior, we're now seeing the rise of these vertical TV shows. You know, I think it originated from China, and I think this has probably been a thing for a little while, but China's had these like vertical stories that you tell, like, you know, like that people would just watch on their phone. And that is kind of becoming more and more of a viable thing, so much so to the point that me as an actor and me having friends in the industry are seeing a lot more of this stuff, a lot more auditions going out for vertical content, a lot more work coming up for, you know, camera operators to do vertical content, which is kind of insane to see, but not entirely unexpected, because I mean, if you think about it, that's just the natural progression of these TV shows, and I kind of don't know how I feel about it just yet with the rise of vertical content. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, because I'm actually genuinely curious about this. But yeah, this is certainly a change that I'm currently viewing. So just to summarize, these three things, streamer behaviors, consumer behaviors, and social media, they're all kind of coming together to create this kind of shift in this industry that we're witnessing right before our eyes. And I don't really know how to feel about this. You know, I feel like it's just inevitable. It's just the way that we're consuming content. Whether it's a good or bad thing doesn't really matter in the end, because that's where the money is, that's where the attention is, and ultimately showbiz will go where the money is, right? Half of showbiz is biz. It's the business aspect of it. So whether we like it or not, this is the future. This is the future of media and entertainment as we know. At least that's kind of how I'm interpreting it. As I said before, if you have any thoughts about this, I'll be really curious. Let me know in the comments below. But I'm a little bit concerned about the future of media, about how we're gonna change our tastes in the future, but ultimately we're just gonna have to wait and see whether or not all these changes are gonna be for the better. But anyway, those are just my thoughts about where I think the film and TV industry is headed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. I'm Jamie, by the way, nice to meet you. If you don't know already, I talk about film, TV, animation, and the creative process. If that sounds at all interesting to you, please consider hitting that subscribe button, liking, sharing, hitting the bell button, all that sort of thing. And hey, I'll see you in the next one.